Anti-Oedipus, Silver.
Wishes after tell, hey, pretty pings. I can't go like yellow. You know, agent your bites the whistle. Works, bro.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Yes, it's a million bricks quantities day. So it's still some. After.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Oh.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake ever said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines are machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine, one emits a flux which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods, or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone. Everything is a machine. And three celestial machines, the stars are rainbows, alpine machines, each coupled with those of his body, noise machine. Uninterrupted, idle instrumental. It must feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound life profound to every form. To have a soul for the rocks, metals, water, and plants, to welcome into oneself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe with the waxing and waning of the moon. Och det landskap gissar where what the die the multidaging ned in the replies. Krongas can be a chlorophylling machine or a photosynthesis machine, or at least slip his body as a part into such machines. Lenz put himself before the distinction of man nature, before all the identifications that this distinction conditions. He could not experience nature as nature, but as a process of production. There is no more man nor nature only process that produces the one within the other and couples the machines together. Producing machine, desiring machine everywhere, schizophrenic machines, all generic life. Me and not me, exterior and interior don't mean anything anymore. That was me, Anti-Oedipus. That was me, Anti-Oedipus. The desiring machines. Machines.
The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make us see the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was odd, the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily, because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very...
Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. I hope you're all doing well. Greetings and hello from the Quarantine Collective. I'm Brooks, and we are continuing our many circle readings of Anti-Oedipus. We are in our 9th reading today, making our way through the 19th paragraph. Do I have 19th paragraph, as we continue looking into the Bachelor machine and what precedes it. And yeah, you've got dark mode. I've been trying both, seeing what people say. I don't get any complaints for not dark mode. I do get a lot of complaints for dark mode. Apparently, a lot of y'all are just fucking like vampires or some shit. So, what can I say? Just a unique thing. Just a unique thing overall. Let's see. What else do I got going today? I think that's mostly going to be it. I don't think there's a great deal more. Let me get myself more centered here. I don't have a huge amount. Mostly Klasowski's going again on Thursday. For anyone who's interested, I'll be doing more streams, one probably later tonight and tomorrow, as I finish up the next set of partial objects, which I'm hoping to begin recording Friday-ish, because it's a weird one. So I'll be probably needing help. We're also going in the process. I'm going to be posting the results of the moderation team's feedback. We're looking at doing a redesign of the QC. We do this every couple of years. We've put this one off for a very long time, but it's about time. Honestly, it's about time. Fucking everything's just not working like the way we want. So hoping to, flesh it out a little bit, give everything a little bit more space, but we'll find out. So there's a lot of fun things happening this week. A lot of fun things. Let's talk about what is leading up to this and kind of what this paragraph's doing before we read it, because there's a lot that's happening in this section of the book that, again, this first section is them laying out their sort of ontological understanding of the production of subjectivity, how the unconscious functions, using it as a somewhat of a polemic against psychoanalytic thought, using what they're talking about philosophically, just like building. This is the building. It's a positive task. Then they've got negative tasks to go about. And there is a weird meta to the book that sort of flips itself and is the thing. Everything they're talking about here is going to be explained in almost painful, excruciating detail in chapter 2. And then chapter 3 goes into sort of the way that these things exist in time, which they do, and how in time these things sort of build on each other and how they build. Right now, what we're sort of doing is working within specifically the third synthesis of the unconscious. This is the conjunctive synthesis of consumption, consummation. And that's where we find the production of the subject, of the you, of the I, whatever we want to call it. The you, the I, whatever you think exists, that's their jam. They've been tracing the movement of the unconscious throughout this, and that's kind of the way to be reading this. Lapoujad's Aberrant Movements, I think, does a very admirable job of sort of helping to realign how we should be talking about sort of the unconscious elements, that it is about the movements of things and their relationality, retraction, repulsion, and attraction, not retraction, Jesus Christ, Brooks. And that through these things, repulsion itself is where we find originary repression, for example. This is where the BWO repels machines of desire. And then attraction in the process, which is the miraculating machine, the BWO attracting and appropriating the machines, these processes and how they're intertwining. And again, this isn't step 1, 2, 3. It's sort of an all at once constant thing happening. So this attraction and repulsion is just constantly playing back and forth, right? And then the issue is, how do these things reconcile? Repulsion and attraction don't ever balance. You can't really put like a magnet to balance perfectly on another one. It doesn't really function like that. There's just enough variability that it will fall off the side. Like if you have it floating and it just falls off the side, you've got to do a lot of work to sort of keep these things in place. This opposition is a thing that doesn't just become balanced, but instead a thing that persists, and it persists through the miraculating machine all the way through. And to have reconciliation, we need effectively a third machine. And this third machine is more or less the return of the repressed. They're going to be, they've given at this point, we just went through a lot of examples of this. They're going to be doing a lot more because this is a big push for them. It's kind of a huge deal to the way they understand things, to say the least. So don't jump through here. This is a beast. There's a lot to this one. But last week we went over Robert Guy, and he's the guy who was committed to the hospital, mental hospital. He was in an asylum, and he drew these crazy electrical machines. We went through a couple of them, and he talked about sort of not so much suffering from them. He started there, but moved towards their triumph, right? Their triumph, instead of their torment. The example of Schreber, like Judge Schreber, who they will come back to, I think, throughout the entire book. He was cross-dressing and found himself cross-dressed before a mirror, and he found these things healing. The way that nature becoming production, the allowance of what we are sort of, or what the desiring machines are sort of producing, that setup kind of heals, right? So that they've come up with a name for this machine. I do not like the word celibate machine. We went through this. We'll go through it again because there's actually the next paragraph it's kind of big featured. So I'm going to hold off commenting there. But the name bachelor machine comes from Michel Carouge, who we're going to be talking about today. And it designates this third machine. This third machine forms a new alliance between those machines, right, and the full body. So This alliance, again, is not reconciled. Doesn't go away, but there is an alliance between them that produces this glorious organism. The new humanity is the word that they really like sort of going on about. With this, the subject is produced as a remainder of the operation of this reconciliation, right? So the conjunctive synthesis of consumption is the marveling form of their words. So that's what it was. So as we go through this, be thinking through sort of this key move that they're making, that the subject doesn't pre-exist the process that makes it. It is a residual effect of passing through all of the three machines, and not the subject passing through the three machines, of desire passing through all three machines, and in mass at once, sort of all together. The bachelor machine is where the productive circuit completes itself. It's where the subject emerges, not as an agent who drives the machine, not as one who controls it, but as what is sort of left over from the running of it. You are waste product, more or less. More or less. And Anton, I'm probably going to end up reading your comments. Actually, probably also Kali, because there was a little commentary on Kafka's story, which I do want to spend a little bit of inordinate amount of time on. But I think your comments are fantastic. Everyone's comments are fantastic, by the way. And so it's been really interesting to sort of think of things through there. I'll also explain my stupid in-joke, because only people probably who... It's a stupid... it's a true story, but it's a stupid in-joke. The next two paragraphs, but certainly this one, is sort of going through the literary typology of things to flesh out what the bachelor machine is as a concept, independent of everything else. They want to talk about it for what it is. This is what their sort of process is, over and over and over and over. You've seen it before, right? And they're going to be going through all these things and all this process. So let's give it a read, see what happens. Michel Carouge isolated, under the name of bachelor machines, a certain number of fantastic machines that he discovered in literature. The examples he invokes are highly varied, do not seem at first glance to be able to fall into the same category. Duchamp's bride stripped bare by her bachelors, the machine in Kafka's Penal Colony, the machines of Raymond Roussel, those of Jarry Supermal, I'm never going to pronounce this guy's name right, certain machines of Edgar Allan Poe, Villiers' Future Eve, etc. Yet the traits that found the unity, the variable importance, according to the example considered, are the following. First, the bachelor machine testifies to an ancient paranoiac machine, with its tortures, its shadows, its ancient law. It is not itself, however, a paranoiac machine. Everything distinguishes it from this, its gears, chariot, scissors, needles, magnets, and rays. Even in the tortures or death that it gives, it manifests something new, a solar power. Second, this transfiguration cannot be explained by the miraculous character that the machine owes to the inscription it contains, although it effectively does contain the highest inscriptions, the recording that Edison played in The Future Eve. There is an actual consumption of the new machine, a pleasure that one can qualify as autoerotic, or rather as automatic, where the nuptials of a new alliance are knotted, new birth, dazzling ecstasy, as if mechanical eroticism liberated other unlimited powers. Don't worry, channel. We're going to be going through all of these. So don't worry too much. So let's start up. Michel Carouge isolated, under the name of bachelor machines, a certain number of fantastic machines he discovered in literature. The name bachelor machines. Hurley and a lot of people in English have always translated this as celibate machines. I actually refuse this translation for a few reasons. Celibate in English has a lot of religious connotations, an ascetic connotative sort of side to it, right? Bachelor does not. Bachelor is someone who is single. That's it. A confirmed bachelor is someone who is just single. They're out there alone. They are solitary. But they can hook up with other people. They can do things, but they are solitary. Celibate is either chosen or not chosen as a thing. There's a agency in there, right? That's a problem for me. We'll get into it. It's not virgin machines. These aren't virgins. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you have sex. This is why I hate the word celibate machines. It simply is different. Now, the reason it's translated that is because the word is célibataire. We went over this last week, but it's worth a second because we're about to talk about Duchamp's bride stripped bare by her bachelors, which is literally always translated as that. That's what Duchamp called it in English. That's what everyone has always called that piece of art. However, Duchamp's bride stripped bare by her bachelors actually originally has a different name. It's bride stripped bare by her célibataires, which is bachelors, because it has nothing to do with whether or not someone fucks. It has nothing to do with whether or not something is ascetic. It has nothing to do with an oath of celibacy. It has nothing to do with the avoidance of things. It is a solitary existence. It is a solitary existence. And again, we open here. Michel Carouge wrote a lovely book that obviously we're talking about it here. His book is Les Machines Célibataires, which he translated, and everyone has always translated as the bachelor machines. Celibate is a religious ascetic overtone that the French simply does not have. Like, period. Super. They literally translate célibataires correctly in the following sentence. Well, yeah, they do, but only when it's being used particularly in ways. Like, they leave it as, they say, under the name bachelor machines. He called them bachelor machines. It's very frustrating. There is a man side to this, a male side to this in English, which, again, we can sort of tarry with, but the intention is particular. And we'll get to sort of why, because there is an art history and historical context to why they choose this name, right? So, what this sentence is doing, D&G, I don't think ever hooked up, but maybe, who knows? You guys go write your, go draw some weird, like, porn for Tumblr. Is that a thing you kids do still? Where's that elsewhere? Now it's on, what, X? Carouge's Les Machines Célibataires is a very eccentric work of comparative literature. It is interesting to read. I didn't gain a lot from it myself. I'm not saying not to read it. You might get a lot more from it than I did. But kind of what he's doing is he takes all of these texts that apparently don't go together at all, which is why it's interesting. And he finds these structures of, you could say, I like to use the term the way he does. What he's doing is he's like looking for like productive engineered elements or programmatic structures or interrelated sort of scripting elements. It's really interesting as a setup because the entire thing became this huge thing through the 70s. This book is not an unknown quantity in art circles. This is a very, very important book to a lot of people in French and European modern art, that this became a thing, right? And they're not like citing him like, oh, I like this. They're appropriating what he did and then they're redirecting it towards their project. That's what they're playing with. And they continue. The examples he invokes, we're going to go through them, don't worry. The examples he invokes are highly varied and do not seem, at first glance, to be able to fall into the same category. Duchamp's Bride Stripped Bare by Her Bachelors, The Machine in Kafka's Penal Colony, blah, 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 blah. We'll go through all these. There's just like a ton here. I'm going to skip going over the translation issue I have here, because it doesn't matter. Okay. If you haven't seen these, it might just be easier to just show. I've actually mentioned it's a really extraordinary piece. Duchamp's Bride Stripped Bare. It is a weird fucking piece of art, and that is not going to be a good YouTube. Why did I click YouTube? God damn it. It's almost not going to be a thing you're able to really make sense of on its own. But this is Bride Stripped Bare by her bachelors. Now, the apocryphal story goes that the glass wasn't originally broken when he delivered it. I don't know how many people have heard this. Duchamp was a fucking wild person. The fact that he created so much art that I think a lot of people would go on to either say is not art or adore or whatever, like literally I think achieved his project. Like the number of people who say what he made is not art is actually achieving Duchamp's project. The guy was wild. But the story goes that on delivery, when it was first delivered, it didn't have these breaks, and it fell over and the glass shattered. And Duchamp was there, and I can just imagine, if this story's true, I love the idea of it being true. He was standing over it, and it broke. The delivery guy's just probably dying inside. But he turned, he went, finally, something like, finally, I knew it was missing something, and like was overjoyed that it was cracked. The guy was a fucking wild man. It was a wild person. And it's really, it's a lot. The point of this section, right? Because it's weird to match that painting or art or sculpture or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? With the way that Kafka, for example, has a short story about the bureaucracy of a torture apparatus, or Raymond Roussel, who did Locus Solus, I think is what they're referencing here, the machines of that, because he wrote weird novels that are about mechanistic interventions, right? He had a science fiction novel about the Superman who that's Jari's La Sumal. Sorry, my notes are fucked up. From like the early 1900s, the La Sumal is a superhuman endurance sexuality experience that people have. Poe always had machines. Like if you haven't read Edgar Allan Poe, Poe loved intricate machines, silly, intricate, stupid machines that killed people and did all kinds of stuff. And then L'Œuvre Future, which is the Edison constructing a fake woman, a robotic woman. Well, he wouldn't have probably called it robotic. It's machinic, a mechanistic woman, artificial woman. The point of all of these is their diversity. These don't seem like they're coming together, right? They don't fit. They don't seem to fit, but they do. The diversity is the point. The bachelor machine appears across media, genre, categories, centuries. There is something structural and odd in the literary imagination we have of machines that functions in a particular way. And that's what Bachelor Machines is. The book that Carouge wrote is about talking through sort of these odd machines that are about themselves sort of left out on their own. They are bachelor machines. When Edison makes Eve and he makes the first artificial woman, it may be a woman, but it's out on its own. It's sort of like Frankenstein's monster not having a bride. There's no one for it. It exists in that story on its own. The same is true of all of the stories that Kafka tells of this. And in the penal colony is the one they're going to go to, and we'll get to why. But everything that he's doing, like Kafka's constantly building out sort of these mechanized, weird, bureaucratic nightmare things, right? Like it's really weird. But these are all machines. These are all machines. These are examples invoked by Carouge. It's why Carouge's work is interesting, but it's all of these diverse sort of standing alone examples. Standing alone is pretty important to this, right? Watch the Deleuze philosophy guy. He made a video called Repetition, Modern Madness, and the Conquest of the Future. He made all three sentences are happening. They are happening at the same time. Well, they're happening imminently to each other. It's more Kantian than that. So I hope he didn't oversimplify. We'll keep going. We'll come back if you want to go through any of the works. Kafka is going to be a thing later, so save that one for later. But that's kind of the idea to start this off, is their series of standalone machines. Cool? We cool? Hope we're cool. All right. Yet the traits that found the unity of variable importance, according to the example considered, are the following. First, the bachelor machine testifies to an ancient paranoiac machine with its tortures, its shadows, its ancient law. As they move from the apparent heterogeneity, and that's going to be very important, they're going to be talking about this move from the heterogeneous to the seemingly homogeneous. This is kind of this is the big deal. This is the move. This is all that fun stuff. All of that shit, right? So the bachelor machine testifies to an ancient paranoiac machine with its tortures, its shadows, its ancient law. So structurally, the bachelor machine follows the paranoiac machine. Its succession is sequential in this. The paranoiac gives way to the miraculating, gives way to the bachelor machine. But this isn't one of replacement. Instead, it's one of testifying. It carries that mark, more or less, right? It carries that mark. So, I was talking about this, like Return of the Repressed and all that fun stuff. The structure of the Aufhebung, Freudian shit. But it's not about dialectical reconciliation. That's like, oh, everything collapses into it. It's not, I made good with it and I found a way to reconcile. And so now it's just one. It's like, no, it's not just one thing. That's not the setup here. That's not what's happening. The bachelor machine preserves the trace of the old regime. I mean, the way they say it, the tortures, the shadows, the law, but it's not that thing. It's doing something different. They capitalized law here. And they do so because it's necessary as they're talking about Kafka's Penal Colony. Again, Guattari's background in Name of the Father and Lacan. Name of the Father is law. There's a lot of things happening here that they're sort of playing with. The big deal is that the paranoiac machine, which is the regime of law, right, isn't after the fact. The father looking down and no, it's that tracing is kept in. The paranoiac is kept in there. But it isn't itself. It is not, however, a paranoiac machine. Everything distinguishes it from this. It's gears, chariots, scissors, needles, magnets, and rays. These are all mechanistic elements, just as a thing. Like these are material of the bachelor machine's components. It's This is like an inventory of the pieces that come from the previous thing. Like all the examples. These are the gears, the scissors, the chariot, the needle, blah, 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 blah. All of those things. The point is that the bachelor machine is materially different from the paranoiac machine. It has different parts. It has different connections. It may have the inscription. It may have the mark that it carries with it, but it is not itself the paranoiac machine. They've kind of said, and they will continue to say, that machines are defined by their components and connections. right? They call it the pieces and cuts, coupures. This isn't some overarching what it does or intention. None of those things matter here. You don't know the machine you're dealing with unless you look at its parts. So it may seem like a paranoid machine. It is not a paranoid machine. Everything distinguishes it from this. It's gears, chariot, scissors, needles, magnets, and rays. Would it be like Schreber becoming woman, not transcending? No, we're not talking quite at that point. Wait for a bit, because like, throw all of that out. Don't try to piece it into anything. Right now, the bachelor machine is being talked about how it exists and how it is part of, it's got paranoid machine, and it seems like it. That's why we mistake it for such things. But there's other stuff going on too. There's other stuff. There's a second coming up. But before we get there, even in the tortures or death that it gives, it manifests something new, a solar power. This is the biggest deal as part of the first trait, and it's going to be a thing that carries through the entire book. Everything is literally mechanical. No. But yes, depends on how you mean that. The bachelor machine's violence is qualitatively different from the paranoid machine's violence. Both have violence. Both are experiencing, like, that. There is that mark. There is that thing. The paranoid machine's tortures of BWO and a bunch of other stuff. But these are punitive. They're juridical. They're law, right? The old law inscribing itself on the body. The bachelor machine's tortures, they're different. They're a Nietzschean affirmation. The solar power that they're bringing out here, a power of transformation and growth, not of punishment. So Kafka has in his book, and I told everyone for their homework, read In the Penal Colony. One, it's a good book. Kafka's great. But In the Penal Colony is important to understanding a lot of the metaphors here. And I'm not going to explain, we're not going to do a reading of the book right now. But for those who read, when the machine breaks down and kills the officer who's so certain that it is glorious, it doesn't produce the transfiguration that the officer expected or assumed or had always said was part of it. The expectation of transfiguration is the bachelor element. The machine should produce enlightenment through inscription, but it fails, and the failure is the story's point. So when we talk about solar here, the Nietzschean battalion solar economy that runs through this entire book in every single way, the sun is like this figure of non-recuperable expenditure. It's energy that gives, that we don't have to give back. If you didn't know, we don't have to give back to the sun, despite the sun god saying otherwise. Morduk's a cool dude. But that's like the deal, right? The energy gives without return. That's the model for the bachelor machine's new setup, new puissance. It produces without regard for the old economies, the old economy of debt, the punishment that governed the paranoid machine. It produces, it has a solar power. Short version of, I'm going to have to do it, I guess, especially for the next paragraph. But the short version of In the Penal Colony is, dude's wandering and he comes to this penal. He's like, oh, penal colony. And there's other things, but they have this machine. And what they do is the machine, you put a prisoner in when they've done something real bad, and it like carves into their body as like they pull a lever, carves into their body, all the things that they did, and then fucking tortures them. They die. They die in these horrifying ways. And the commandant, who runs the penal colony, is like, and that glorious reality, that glorious ending gives them so much power. That's their amazing thing. They get to fucking be enlightened. Can you believe it? We have this amazing machine. We put them through it. Sure, it looks like they're screaming to death as they bleed and everything, but it's like they're having a good time, and it's really like the best thing they've ever experienced, and it enlightens them. Well, in bureaucratic form, I think the state decides it doesn't want to really pay for it, or some shit. They've got AI. They've lobbied to have an AI company take in and help handle the penal colony. So they've got to get rid of this machine. And the commandant's like, no, and he throws himself in there and pulls it to prove how good it is. And lo and behold, he has a bad day. Because not only does it not work, it kind of fails horrifically, and he does not have a good day at the end of it. The seeming of this, the apparency of this, the machine should produce enlightenment through inscription. That it fails is the story's critical point, right? That it fails is like the main point. It's transformation here. Second, this transfiguration cannot be explained by the miraculous character that the machine owes to the inscription it contains, although it effectively does contain the highest inscriptions. For example, the recording that Edison placed in The Future Eve. That's going back to Villiers' Future Eve. There's a lot happening here. This is the second trait of the bachelor machine. And it is performing something that is incredibly crucial. And it's a crucial distinction between the second syntheses and the third syntheses. First part of the second syntheses, registration, inscription, where the miraculated machine occurs. The third synthesis, consumption, consummation, the bachelor machine. The bachelor machine contains inscriptions, right? It carries that bodily carving, that mark through. We just went over that, right? It carries that. But the transfiguration can't be reduced to, it can't be explained by those inscriptions. The bachelor machine does something more than register or inscribe. That's just the second. The registration and inscription is the second. It's got a little bit more here. It's doing more with it. It's consuming. It's consuming. Hint, it's consuming. So the move from Newman, which is the energy of registration, to voluptas, which is the energy of consummation, consumption, that we went over in the previous little bit here, is kind of the big deal. In Future Eve, in the novel, Thomas Edison builds this artificial woman, and it's effectively a robot. It's not computerized. It wasn't really the setup. He probably would have made it that, but it was more, think, sort of steampunky or that kind of thing, more or less. And he built it for a friend of his, some lord or some shit. And in it, he put a recording. And when I say recording, I think it was a tube one. I can't remember the book. I think it's one of those tube, like a fucking LP, like a vinyl record. But it's like one of those tube, and I think he puts it in. The point is, it gave this android robot thing, whatever, I don't even know the words for it, the human thing, the human robot thing. It gave it the capacity for speech and personality, right? That android is a bachelor machine that has the highest byproduct of the miraculating machine. But what it does, the effect it produces, exceeds the recording. Okay? What it does is exceed the recording. It produces fascination. It produces ecstasies. The recording is necessary, but the recording isn't sufficient. There's other shit happening here. There's something more produced. Let's see. Like medieval executions providing soul. Yeah, Caleb, that's what he's kind of playing with. Kafka is doing a lot of shit, and I'm not going to say like he intended any of this. How I read the penal colony is the way that we presume that there is any hope, or that the pain someone goes through, or the building of character, any words we want, these things make us. And that these things can create in those horrifying moments some level of growth. I think it was a wax cylinder. Thank you very much, dear God. Grizzle does know best, it turns out. Yeah. Let's do the last line and then talk about it. The next paragraph, if you didn't know, is fucking huge. So we're going to be doing a lot there. And I want to make sure we get through this because this is setting up that paragraph. There is an actual consumption of the new machine, a pleasure that one can qualify as autoerotic, or rather as automatic, where the nuptials of a new alliance are knotted, new birth, dazzling ecstasy, as if mechanical eroticism liberated other unlimited powers. I just really like this. This is completely changed in Hurley's translation, and I think the original is far more beautiful. I do. But this is the culmination of the paragraph, more or less, right? The bachelor machine produces actual consumption, right? This isn't just pure inscription. It's not really doing inscription. It's not just doing registration, but it's a use, an expenditure, a consummation that is also consumption. There's a reason that in English you'll often see the consummation/consumption or consumption/consummation as a thing. It's both. It's both. The pleasure it generates is qualified as autoerotic. And then they say automatic. It's moving away from psychoanalytic vocabulary here, that there is some sort of weird language of the soul that we have to understand. Oh, it's this, and then you have the father that shows up, and then you have the originary repression returning, and it's like, Dungeons and Dragons for weirdos. They're like, no, it's none of that. It's more machinic. It's more of a simplified language to describe something that itself is actually quite complicated. What's happening isn't really autoerotic. Like they go, one can qualify it as autoerotic. That's a thing that Freud did a lot. For Freud, there are pre-object stages of the libido where the drives take the body as the object of the drives. They're like, no, it's not really autoerotic because it's not a subject pleasuring itself. There's no subject quite yet. The production of the subject as you go is kind of the bigger deal. It's automatic. The pleasure is a property of the machine's functioning. It's not of a subject. The machine just runs. Pleasure is the byproduct of the machine running. And that's like the thing they're saying. The nuptials of a new alliance are knotted, right? The bachelor machine was introduced as forming this new alliance between machines of desire and the BWO. The term alliance has a lot of anthropological shit in it, and there's a reason for that, right? There's a lot of reasons. They're pulling from Godelier and Strauss in a lot of ways. But they're being very particular that this isn't filiative. This is alliant. Chapter 3 will make it matter a lot. Just hold that. There's no point in that until chapter 3, really. But that's like the big, just as a note. The bachelor machine knots this new covenant. And it's not between God and man. It's not between lineages. It is between the productive machinic and the surface of anti-production. This is the reconciliation that was promised. It's not dialectical at all. It is knotting. If you can't, Guattari didn't get that far away from Lacan, but it's a nuptial nodding of things. And they have this line, the new birth, dazzling ecstasy, as if mechanical eroticism liberated other unlimited powers. This is a climax of ecstasy. Like and I mean that in like in mostly the sexual way. Like this is like jouissance. This is all that shit together. I guess it's when we talk about unlimited powers or forces, the solar being generative is this like perpetual motion thing. Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. But ish, sort of. They're not claiming that, like, metaphysically, that mechanical eroticism like liberates unlimited powers. They're describing the experience of the bachelor machine. It's as if all of those constraints fell away. It's the apparent movement, right? We've gone through this. That if a magician makes something disappear in front of you, he's not lying to you, and you're not like lied to. You're not fooled. You might be fooled, but you see the thing. But it's not that you like are bad for missing the thing, or if you could only slightly more clever, you could see it. The whole point of the magician's trick is that you don't see the trick happen. And so it, in all effect, did disappear for you. That's the thing. The apparent is the big deal here. And the apparent energy is the big deal. It gives, Bachelor Machine gives me the impression also it's not like the Bachelor Machine at this point, and there's going to be something coming up pretty quick here, but it sort of has this seeming unlimited power. The schizo experience in affirmative dimensions, the moment before it's captured by clinical and social reduction. That's kind of where we're about to go, by the way. It's going to get sad from here out. This is like, it has the feeling of that, but it isn't necessarily that. Yeah, basically, Collie, not far off. Not far off. Yeah. And the thing that's like the question at the center of this is what for Carouge, and Carouge was basically asking like, what is it that a bachelor machine produces? Because it's kind of funny to think about each of these machines that are in these that they use, these bachelor machines. There is more to them, or it's seemingly a lot more to them than their parts. More is assigned to them, more is given to them, more weight is given to them, more experience. You experience these things as heightened, but they're not. A great example of this would be artificial intelligence right now. It is experienced as though there's no edge to it. This is not what it is. It's experienced as though it is the recording doesn't matter. None of that matters. It seems as though there is something far more than that. It's not the parts. There's some bigger thing happening. It feels like that, at least. There isn't.
Wait, Brooks, are you saying that there's almost no exteriority for AI?
I mean, the experience of it, correct. That's how people experience it.
Okay. Good to sneak in some structuralism language in here, but please continue.
That's not sneaking in structuralism. The experience, it's maybe sneaking in some phenomenology, but the way people experience these things, again, feels as though there is no boundary. People are like, oh my God, this will literally fucking be able to invent new kinds of mathematics and physics and take us to the moon and do my laundry and give me blowjobs and save the world. And it's like, what? No, no. But that doesn't matter. The machine that Edison built, this woman, has the recording in it that makes it seem like it's got all of this stuff, and it seems as though it's a real woman, a real artificial woman. It's not about embodiment. I've always found the celibate machine interesting. It's not the celibate machine, because it's D&G's explanation for why suffering is necessary in the production of a subject. I don't know. That would take me a little bit of time. I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking through the Bachelor in this next bit, but this is one of those big reasons that when we talk about it being celibate again is non-connective. The Bachelor machine work, it is knotted in marriage. This is why the language matters. The nuptials of a new alliance are knotted. A celibate machine can stay celibate after marriage. This is why this doesn't work. It's why it's important to have the specific language fixed, all of that stuff. We use autogenic instead of autoerotic. I don't know. They use autoerotic pretty much exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Anyone have commentary, notes, questions on this paragraph before we move forward? Because the next one's a bear. It's a bear. No, someone in YouTube was asking about it. Autogenic. They don't use autogenic. The original French has automatique and then automatique. So is a bachelor machine a model of anti-procreation? No. It's just not necessarily married. It's not part of anything. It's something that is built and sort of comes out solo. Comes out alone, solitary. Thank you very much for the 10, John Casey. And thank everyone thank John Casey for the solar ani. Yeah, the use of bachelor machine is very interesting, but it's a big one. Big important one. Shall we do the next paragraph? Unless anyone's got a thing. I'm trying to give everyone a moment. All right. The question becomes, as I was just sort of hinting at, that's kind of where this is going. That's what Carouge was going for. What is the point? What do these things produce? They're going to answer that. They're going to be running through a lot of things here. There is a lot to go through and a lot of references, so bear with me. The question becomes, what does the bachelor machine produce? What is produced through it? The answer seems to be intensive quantities. There is a schizophrenic experience of intensive quantities in the pure state at an almost unbearable point, a misery and a bachelor glory experienced at the highest degree, like a clamor suspended between life and death, a feeling of intense passage, states of pure and raw intensity stripped of their figure and their form. One often speaks of hallucinations and delirium, but the hallucinatory datum, I see, I hear, and the delirious datum, I think, presuppose a deeper I feel, which gives hallucinations their object and delirious thought its content. A I feel that I am becoming woman, that I am becoming God, etc., which is neither delirious nor hallucinatory, but which will project the hallucination or internalize the delirium. Delirium and hallucination are secondary in relation to the true primary emotion, which experiences first only intensities, becomings, and passages. Where do these pure intensities come from? They come from the two preceding forces, repulsion and attraction, and from the opposition of these two forces. Not that intensities are themselves in opposition with one another and balance themselves around a natural state. On the contrary, they are all positive, starting from intensity equals 0, which designates the full body without organs. And they form relative falls or rises according to their complex relation and the proportion of attraction and repulsion that enters into their cause. In short, the opposition of forces of attraction and repulsion produces an open series of intensive elements, all positive, which never express the final equilibrium of a system, but an unlimited number of metastable stationary states through which a subject passes. Profoundly schizoidal is the Kantian theory according to which intensive quantities fill matter without void at diverse degrees. Following the doctrine of Judge Schreber's, attraction and repulsion produce intense states of nerve, which filled the full body without organs at diverse degrees, and through which the subject Schreber passes, becoming woman, becoming many other things still according to the circle of eternal return. The breasts on the naked chest of the judge are neither delirious nor hallucinatory. They designate first a band of intensity, a zone of intensity on his full body without organs. The full body with organs is an egg. It is traversed by axes and thresholds, by latitudes, longitudes, geodesics. It is traversed by gradients, which mark the becomings and passages, the destinations of the one who develops there. Nothing here is representational, but everything is life and lived. The lived emotion of the breasts do not resemble breasts, does not represent them any more than a predestined zone in the egg resembles the organ which will be induced there. Nothing but bands of intensity, potentials, thresholds, and gradients. A harrowing experience, too moving, by which the schizo is closest to matter, to an intense and living center of matter. Quote, "This emotion, situated outside the particular point where the spirit seeks it, this emotion, which returns to the spirit the shattering sound of matter, the whole soul flows there and passes into its ardent fire." It's a very good paragraph. Very good paragraph. What is this annotation software? It is something I hacked together and then an AI helped me build out and finish because turns out I didn't understand a handful of APIs I was using. So yeah, just fucking hate me, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot is said here, and it's kind of beautiful. It's kind of beautiful, I think. There's just a lot that's said, and it's stuff that we're going to take a little bit of time through today. We're going to spend the rest of this whole reading on this. It'll be probably an hour and a half. We'll be going through it. Let's summarize a little bit, right? So what does the bachelor machine produce? The answer is intensive states, intensive quantities. Sorry. It's going to be one of those things. There's a lot said. It's going to be intensive quantities, the pure states of intensities. And we experience these, the subject experiences these as an almost unbearable thing, right? So there's a hierarchy of experience here that they're going to lay out. And when we go through it, it'll make more sense. But there's a place for them that they see where the I feel is more fundamental than the hallucinatory I see or I hear. And then also the I think. These are steps of a process or parts of a process or all these things. These are becomings. When we have becoming woman, becoming God, these are intensive experiences. These aren't representational qualities of things. These aren't symbolic connections of things. These are pure intensities. And they derive from like the interplay of the repulsion and attraction from before, those weird movements of things. And that weird movement produces this continuing positive, intensive state set that the subject passes through. The thing that makes this paragraph crazy for me, everyone might take a thing differently, is that they do this crazy short-circuiting of Kant. So they say, well, Kant is here. We'll go through when I get back to it, because I'm kind of summarizing right now, and there's a lot to be said around this. But Kant's doctrinal sort of take on things, that intensive quantities fill matter. And they do so without void, that there's no vacuum, there's nothing empty, that those fill fully. And they call it profoundly schizoidal. The BWO, as they're looking at it, if you think of it as this filled, and again, full body without organs doesn't mean the full set of it or the completed. It means full, means filled up, right? So the egg in the BWO kind of work the same this way. They have axes, they have thresholds, they have gradients, all that shit. Nothing in an egg is what will be a chicken or a fish or whatever the fuck the egg is. Nothing's a foot, nothing's a toe, nothing's a beak. Everything is life and experience. And they end with our toe that's a beautiful line. Beautiful. Talking about how the schiz is this thing that is closest to matter, to the intensity and the living center of matter itself. Fucking crazy paragraph. We'll get it. I don't know how much difference there is. Egg has codes for foot. It doesn't actually. This is one of the things that Susan Oyama in Evolution's Eye and the Ontology of Information goes over. The understanding that we actually have of DNA is that it's not like this is a foot. How would it ever do that? Instead, DNA, in its genuinely gloriously miraculous thing, is only actually about assembling the next possible. It doesn't know what a goal is. It doesn't have a goal in mind. It doesn't say this is what a foot is. It just knows, oh, I've got these things and these resources. I got to do this. So it's actually fully adjacent possible. So there's no foot in an egg. There's no beak in an egg. There's not even the code for it. That's a misunderstanding of DNA that, again, a lot of people have. I've had. It's fine. It's all good. Everyone's got that. But they're just like, hey, these proteins. Oh, hey, protein, can you go there? Okay, cool. That's basically all DNA does. That's it. I'm oversimplifying, obviously, to be a little facetious, but it's not, all right, time to build a foot. That's not really what it does. So we'll get to that. Don't worry. But it's going to be a lot. The question becomes, what does the bachelor machine produce? What is produced through it? I have issues with the translation, but again, going through Carouge and the literary sort of play, all these bachelor machines, what is produced through it? The answer seems to be intensive quantities. Okay. Intensive quantities is a technical term. It is actually a technical term. This is not like some random shit. This is out of Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, which I'm not going to ever assign as homework because Jesus Christ. But in order to fully understand Deleuze, you're going to have to read Critique of Pure Reason, read Deleuze's book on Kant, and then probably read 2 or 3 secondary sources on Critique of Pure Reason. It's not an easy book. And I'm going to be oversimplifying and not doing justice to Kant here. I'm not a big fan of Kant personally, but the things he came up with are incredibly useful. And Deleuze, I think, does a very, very extraordinary job of rebuilding his concepts in a new way. Kant's a lot. But aren't the proteins that are coded in DNA really just like the cognitives arrays? Well, what do you mean coded? If you mean the way that a gear moves the thing that's next to you, yes. If you mean it's a machine that produces chickens, no. All right, so I'm going to try to do this. I apologize in advance if anyone here is able to, and I know Noah's here, so at least I have someone who I know can yell at me. You recommend Prolegomena? I don't. Go for it, JK.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you talked about the bachelor machine.
Yes.
Is that part of the social machine, or is that one of the abstract machines?
Neither. The bachelor machine is one of the machines of the unconscious.
Okay. So it's a desire machine?
No.
Yeah.
I know. Let me think about how to answer that.
Okay. So how many machines are there altogether? There are, because sounds like there's a war machine, there's a, machines assemblage, technical material machines, abstract machines, social machines, and desire machines.
Good question. I'm wondering too.
Okay. I'm gonna have to think about that. My brain was just literally inside of Kant right now, and so I'm gonna have to. My brain is not super setting up, but hey, let's pull back in how we're talking about machines. I think would be the first thing I'd say, because there are not like desiring machines and social machines. Desiring machines are social machines. Everything is desiring machines. It's ontologically different than sort of thinking through like the schema of how we talk about animals, where we say, oh, this is these are the birds in the bird kingdom, and then we have these other ones and setups like that. Because the bachelor machine itself is basically the third functional regime of the relationship between desiring machines and the BWO. But it doesn't mean that it's a desire machine or a social machine. It's not itself either one of those. And an abstract machine, it doesn't come in until ATP. So they definitely they wouldn't say that, at least at this point, as I understand it. The way that the architecture sort of sets up is that we have desiring machines at the base of all of this, right? And as they produce, they reveal the surface of recording. The BWO emergently sort of comes about, anti-production comes about. How these things interact and how desire machines interact with themselves is itself a machine. When we're talking about, for example, with Nietzsche talks about there are interactions of impulsions. Klosowski runs with this very heavily, and the impulses that are sort of at the very baseline of everything, which we kind of analogous to desire machines, but a little bit different. They at some point run into each other, and other times run into almost themselves, or they run into the later version of themselves, or the way that the interference pattern of those impulsions then runs into other interference patterns. Each of these is something that we're able to abstractly understand separately, and so as such is different machines that are at work. So when we talk about and open up with the first, we got the desiring machines at the base with the BWO as anti-production. The machines are relations between these elements and how they sort of work and how they produce. So when desiring machines, for example, are repulsed by the BWO because the BWO repulses them, repels them away. This is a unique interaction. Now you can just say, oh, it's just repulsing them, but that would be ignoring the fact that there's other secondary effects produced by this repulsion or by its attraction or by its reconciliation. And each one of these things and its interaction produces. So as such, each of these steps is itself also a machine. It is not that there is like all these machines are like laid on top of each other as if, okay, I've got to build the desire machine, then I build this and set this up. It's like, no. All the molecules, all the things that go That's everything. But there's weird shit that happens when they run into each other. Well, what do we call that weird shit? Well, let's talk about it mechanically. These things happen. Okay, but when that happens, then also this other thing. Oh, well, these are all machines. And they all produce differently. They all work differently. That would be the way to be thinking about this. It's not that there are these machines and that it's waiting. It's that these machines, desiring machines in their interactions with themselves and in their interactions with the anti-production, which is part of the process, their interactions produce other things, which necessitates the need for us to talk about them as different machines, but they aren't actually different machines. The problem here is how we can they're not different desiring machines. That's my point. They're not different desiring machines. And we wouldn't be able to differentiate between desiring machines. They're built of partial objects. And they exist way before representation. Let me try to think of it a different way. Okay. Water is flowing down a river. It does this. Let's just say it's a perfectly smooth, wonderful river. That's great. As it's doing this, it's wearing out an edge of the bank that's slightly weaker or anything else. When it does that, there is a little eddy that happens, a little boof, and it creates little bubbles. This doesn't mean that it's not the river. Doesn't mean it's not water. It just means, oh shit, look at that little like eddy over there that's forming. That you wouldn't say that's not the river, but we talk about it differently because it produces secondary effects that are different. This is the same thing. All of it is desiring machines, but their interactions at different levels in different ways produce different layers of things. This is going to be important when we talk about states and societies, because again, all of us and all social world and social order is always, always, always desiring machines. All of it's desiring machines. It's just these things are built out of many, many interactions of desiring production in time, over time, as desiring production does what it does, not only to itself, but reacts to itself, responds to itself, and then builds these things that then react to itself. Like it's all emergent from desiring production, but it is just desiring production. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
Yeah, it's tough.
River is a good metaphor. So it's
Sorry?
all design production, design machines, and they're just being elaborated in different ways. Huh?
It's a Simondonian thing. Like that's probably the closest I'd say to like a really useful understanding of how these things and interactions produce and build into each other, the way that individuation happens in this process, the way that when scientists talk about the Big Bang and how it happened, it isn't that, oh my God, we're something completely different than the Big Bang. Because we're not. We're just way fucking down the road of a shit ton of physical interactions. But those physical interactions, they change. The world changes at multiple levels when things are very, very tiny. When the entire mass of all the universe is inside of a very tiny space, things interact differently than they do when it's spread out and kind of at some scale that we're at. But it doesn't mean we're not the same stuff. We're not the same stuff. It's the same stuff, but it's the interactions that are producing differently. And so when we talk about like, it's okay for me to say, hey, I am a human being on planet Earth. You can do that. You can see that, but it doesn't mean that like that was built into the original and that look, in the Big Bang, there weren't any humans. It's like, okay, no, we're not doing that. All of it is desiring production all the way through, but desiring production fucks with itself constantly. Basically, desiring machines hit and fuck around and do weird shit. And then other things happen that they then react to as well, because they don't know that it's like, that's not a desiring machine, it's fucking this thing. I want this thing. I hate you. Like that kind of thing that's going back and forth. Right? But again, it is It is a complicated and flowery way to talk about the emergence from desire and production, but everything is desiring production. It's just that desiring production actualizes in contingent formations that we call social machines, or that we call abstract machines, or these other things, which works very well because of what has happened in time to desire and production, and how basically the BWO and the larger sort of stasis of things has folded back on production. Actually, this paragraph's going to go over this. I should have just started reading the paragraph, because that's 100% where we're going to be. Let's see, where was I? In Kant. Because that's what I need. Okay. Kant's critique of pure reason. Kant distinguishes between extensive quantities, right? These are things that have parts external to one another that you can measure through addition. And then there's intensive quantities, which have degrees but no parts. They're measurable basically by their distance from zero. Temperature is the one everyone uses as the example, but you can use others. Color saturation. If you've ever used the saturation slider in Photoshop, it's that same kind of thing. It's not an extensive quantity. It's an intensive quantity. The force you feel something with, how hard that orgasm hits you, whatever it is. These things don't exist as like measurable externally. They're intensive quantities, right? It's not something that is divisible, right? Because if I cut temperature in half, I don't have two temperatures. That's why everyone uses the example, because it's able to be done very quickly. If it's 100 degrees out and I cut the temperature in half, I don't have two temperatures. You get 50 degrees instead. I don't have two hot days. It doesn't work like that. It makes no sense. And this is what the bachelor machine is producing. It's not objects. It's not extensive quantities, not representations, not meanings, degrees of intensive quantity. And this is the entire basis of their theory for effective becoming. We're going to be going through Kant a few more times in here, and they're going to be very specific about it. And I'll kind of expand it out, but like that's like the easiest way for me to do this. It's a lot. And again, if you have read Kant and you're like, what the fuck is Deleuze doing with it? There's a lot of literature on Deleuze and Kant that's worth reading because it's pretty good. Daniel Smith's Deleuze Critical Reader. Patton put it out. Smith has an essay in there on Kant that I really liked. I think that's where it is. When you say production, it reminds me of a person repeating a kind of behavior. I mean, that's what production is. There is a schizophrenic experience of intensive quantities in the pure state, at an almost unbearable point, a misery, and a bachelor glory, experienced at the highest degree, like a clamor suspended between life and death, a feeling of intense passage, states of pure and raw intensity, stripped of their figure and their form. Yeah, I'm going to skip the translation notes for this one too. I'm probably going to skip most of the translation notes. We'll get to it if anyone has a thing. But there's a bit of phenomenology here. That's kind of what they're doing, right? This is a description of the experience of what the bachelor machine produces. And it's kind of like a clinical report being translated into philosophical language. So it's kind of weird. The misery and bachelor glory is Schreber's experience. If you've read it, it clicked for you, hopefully. If you haven't read it, the schizophrenic experience is agonizing and ecstatic at once, not alternating. This is not manic depressive. This is all at once. The insistence that these states are stripped of their figure and form is kind of the heart of this for all of it. Intensive quantities don't exist in representation. That's not how they work. they don't look like anything. Again, what is 100 degrees? What is 200 degrees? No, I'm not talking about in water. Like, what's 212 degrees? Oh, it's boiling water. What's 0 degrees? Oh, it's ice. Sorry for you, for foreigners with your weird math. 100 degrees would be boiling. But we're not talking about it. What does water look like when it's 100 degrees? What does 100 degrees look like? It doesn't work, right? You can't symbolize 100 degrees. That doesn't make any sense. It's not an image of a thing. The full stop, they are lived intensities. Okay? Full stop. Haven't Claude explained it to me like that? That's, well, I mean, the thing is, the reason Claude would explain, and AI would explain using the temperature thing is, I don't think anyone has ever used another, I think it's like everyone's go-to. Temperature is so easy for this. I could do color gradient or the, like, there's a million other fun things, but everyone has had to deal with temperature. So it works basically always. So more people write about it, the more an AI will be likely to pull that. That's the way it works. The phrasing they use about life and death, though. This is Blanchot. We used to have a reading for Blanchot in the server. I wonder if it's still somewhere. So Blanchot, in The Space of Literature, wrote about the entre-deux, the space between life and death, the space between writing and experience, right? The two versions of the imaginary. And Deleuze loves Blanchot, pulls from Blanchot like throughout logic of sense. Huge amount. The clamor between life and death, the clamor suspended between life and death is the intensive spirit of things, the intensive experience of things at its full limit. It's the point where the process either accomplishes or tips into catastrophe. It's again, Kafka's Machine as the example of this. But the Lawrence earlier, the line they used, we've taken love and turned it into a thing rather than a process. A process can end. If we don't allow it to end, it intensifies to horrible outcomes. It's a horrible intensification. That's the thing Lawrence is citing that they're pulling from again. One often speaks of hallucinations and delirium, but the hallucinatory datum, I see, I hear, and the delirious datum, I think, presuppose a deeper I feel, which gives hallucinations their object, and delirious thought its content. Well, this is huge, and this is a great simple sentence. Once in a while, they just say the thing. There's a hierarchy of experience with all of the things we've talked about, right? In an interesting way, like some stuff precedes and comes after. I don't mean hierarchy in the sense of like one controls the other. It's not really that, but it's more like this, then this, then this. That when they talk about a deeper I feel, because you have the delirious datum, which is the thing you can explain that you believe. I believe that everyone should be nice to each other. And the hallucinatory data, I see people being mean to each other. Those things together presuppose a deeper I feel. And that I feel gives hallucinations the object and delirious thought its content. Traditional psychiatry or psychoanalysis, and both really, sort of start with the perceptual, the hallucination, and assume everything comes from that. Or the delirium, the cognitive, how you believe or how you see it, like feel about, like how you claim you feel about things. Like those things are the primary data of what a psychosis is. Here, D and G are saying no. Actually, all of that is secondary. Both of those presuppose a fundamental I feel, a deeper I feel, and effective intensive layer that gives hallucinations the object, delirium the content. You don't first see visions and then feel something about them. You first feel an intensity The hallucination is how that intensity is expressed in the perceptual register for you. The I think that governs delirium or beliefs or whatever shit you want to have. That is different too. Like these things fundamentally work differently. Before the I think, before the I see, there is the I feel. And the I feel is something that the cognitive or perceptual can't handle. Only the intensive can. I double checked. He definitely said de autoerotique. Autogenic would certainly be a jarring translation of that. Oh, were you commenting on the Hurley translation? I'm trying to figure out. No, Hurley didn't do that either. I'm so confused. Is this related to Merleau-Ponty's idea of motor intentionality? This is pretty heavily Ponty. I won't say how heavily or how directly related because I'm not a Ponty person. I like Ponty. Do not get me wrong. I'm just not Mr. Ponty. Just not Mr. Ponty. And I'll just expand on what Noah said. Noah put emphasis in the Discord. Notice how Brooks said affect, which is good. I feel is a misnomer here because it's not about emotions. Well, this is the fun part. The whole point of it is I see, I feel. But that presupposes the subject. It presupposes a thing first. It always does. Oh my God, I see bats. Okay, but wait. Saying that you see bats, is it that you're just seeing bats? Or is there a you seeing the bats? Aha! There you go. Oh, no, woo-woo. If your hang-up's Freud, that's a very fair... I understand now. Sorry, I didn't understand. I'm very sensitive about my translation. I don't want to get anything wrong. So it was like, oh no, did I fuck this up? But I keep going back and checking. I do want to, I'm going to actually talk for a second about the translation here, because this is actually really one of those things that pisses me off. This line right here, but the hallucinatory datum and the delirious datum presuppose a deeper I feel. There's a French word called donner, which is more or less datum, what is given, right? Hurley translates it as basic phenomena, which is not, I don't know why the fuck you do that. I just don't know why you do that. So the sentence for me is, but the hallucinatory datum, I see, I hear, the delirious datum, I think, presuppose a deeper I feel. I think it reads beautifully. Hurley's is, but the basic phenomena of hallucination and the basic phenomena of delirium presuppose an I feel at an even deeper level. I hate that so much. A basic phenomenon is primary manifestation. Like this is one of those things that fucked my understanding of this book up. Like they do this throughout, by the way, but they don't talk about it being a primary phenomenon or a basic phenomenon.
You know, Brooks, if I can add something here, possibly.
Please.
I think it's good to mention affect because a lot of this here is in the context of Schreber. And when Schreber sees that he has breasts, or when he, hears voices from God, or he thinks that he is a woman, all of that presupposes a particular delirium or a notion. I shouldn't say delirium. It presupposes particular affections upon Schreber's body without organs, which allows there to be the production of the sensory experience that he is a woman, which I think is what they're getting at. So rather than starting with Schreiber as a fixed thing that sees XYZ. D and G are trying to understand the genesis or the origin for how those things, whether it's sensory experience or hearing things, seeing things, thinking things, what is the root cause of all of those? And I think you were spot on to say affect, because I think that's all of what the third synthesis is getting at.
Yeah, I would very much agree. Like I said, before the I think, before you have I see, the I feel that gives their words, the hallucinations, their objects, delirium, their content. That's the deal that's here. Like it's an incredibly, like there's an overwhelming, the emotion of the thing drives everything else. And it's not really emotion as we would name it. It's the affective experience. And again, not the I feel, which is post that and your understanding of it. It's such a fine line, and it's so tough. Affect theory has a lot of really good writing on it. But there's not a lot that goes into like how affect and emotion are not the same thing. For a long time, I conflated the two. Flatly. So, Jai on YouTube says it presupposes interpretation with the third machine. There's none of that. We'll get to it because obviously there's some level of interpretation happening somewhere, because Freud has been around for a very long time, because I've gone to therapists, because I've interpreted my dreams, and we do this. So there's some level of that, but this is that the productive processes underneath all of that. That's kind of the jam, right? Yeah. Emotion follows affect. Affect is not the I feel I'm becoming a woman. Affect is a massively complex series of affective, think of it as vibes, affective impulses. Again, I like Klosowski's language around this kind of thing, which is not far from this. So I don't, as I understand it, but it's like, it's not so much that Judge Schreiber was like having the affect of becoming woman. It's that there's like all of these things that are like femininity and sexuality and erotic here, and also the smooth, like the affect of like smooth, soft skin or being cared for, like all of these things before I even say and I've named them. Like, and this is how Klosowski talks about it too. Judge Schreiber was experiencing all of these through his body and found the use of them. To say another way, there's not a lot of reason that Schreiber wouldn't just say, I am a woman, except that he had all of the other impulses and all of the other affects that were pushing in various directions and ways. Again, producing the subject who is, as they could, the bachelor machine, the seeming result that builds, that comes out the other side. We'll get to it. We're not quite done with the paragraph, and there's a lot. I mean, I think it's literally it is the next line. I feel that I am becoming woman, that I am becoming God, etc., which is neither delirious nor hallucinatory, but which will project the hallucination or internalize the delirium. So this is Schreiber. It's this paragraph. Schreiber's becoming woman is the paradigm case for this that they're going to keep using, but it's far beyond Schreiber. Schreiber's just sort of the setup here. Becoming woman, becoming God. These are intensive experiences that are prior to and causative of both the hallucinatory and delirious experiences. So the becoming projects hallucination outward. So Schreiber would see breasts on his chest because that's the affective sort of the force of the affective experience. But he will internalize the delirium, the content of this, and he'll think he's becoming God because he's feeling the same intensive transformation, that this is the only way he knows how to communicate it or to understand it. The direction of causation runs from affect to perception or cognition, not the reverse. This is becoming theory. This is One of Many Wolves, Becoming Woman, and ATP, whatever you want to say. Like, there's a million ways to do this. Becoming imperceptible, becoming body without organs. All of these things. It's about the intensive passages that have nothing to do with imitation. It's not identifying and then becoming that thing, right? Like, it's not, oh, I like that. I'm becoming woman now. It's like, no. Like, emergent force through you is kind of the idea. You can like stuff, but it's not the same thing. There's the delirious and hallucinatory side of it. And they continue, delirium and hallucination are secondary in relation to the truly primary emotion, which experiences first only intensities, becomings, and passages. And the use of emotion here is, it's pretty much as close as I can get. They don't use affect here, so I did leave it as that. Delirium and hallucination are secondary formations. When he sees breasts on his chest, when he feels becoming woman, right? Believes he is becoming woman, or believes he is X, Y, and Z, whatever you want to say that. Like, that is the thing, the pre-category feelings of aliveness that are characterized by this dynamic profile of things. They surge, they fade, you feel them. They're explosive. They're like, the intensity of the intensities is a big deal. That's kind of what determines this sort of outcome. It's not representational output as a thing. It doesn't slough things off in that way. The thing they're doing is talking about the three things that are part of the same process. So when we talk about intensity, which is the quantitative dimension of things, we talk about becoming, that's the qualitative transformation. Then we talk about the passages. That's how the sentence ends, the passages, which is the dynamic traversal of all of it. This is going to be a big deal as we make our way through. Huge deal. Confused why feeling and emotion are separated. Can you name an affect? No. Can you name an emotion? Yes. So I'm going to go to an example I like to use with my kids. My son's crying the other day. And if I go to him and I go, why are you sad? Is he sad? If I asked him how he's feeling, he'd probably say, I'm sad. But is he sad? That's my question. No, probably not. But it probably actually, there's a lot more complexity to it. But sad is such a beautiful, simple way to just understand that someone's crying. He was crying out of frustration, which is nothing like sadness. But he didn't have the words for it or the setup for it. He just only had this one way to express it and the one way to talk about it. Emotion is, yes, exactly, Anton. Emotion is the representative thing. I'm sad. I'm this. It's us trying our best to name the thing internal. Klosowski goes way out of his way and believes this is one of the bigger deals. I highly recommend Klosowski for this. But that difference is huge. And if it's difficult enough with emotions, and it is for every single person here, I don't care if you think you're on whatever spectrum, nobody has the ability to like super perfectly convey every single internal experience or moment. And that's the difference. The affect you can't even recognize, not wholly. You just experience it. It passes through you. Spinoza. Spinoza's definition of affect works here. By affect, I understand the affections of the body by which the body's power of acting are increased or diminished, helped or hindered. At the same time, the idea of those affections. If, therefore, we can be the adequate cause of one of the affections, then I understand by the affect and action. Spinoza's so good. Spinoza's so good. Just trying to find a category. I'm also reading Primary Emotion as Deleuze's reading of Hume. Yeah. I think that fits with subjectivity. I think that fits with his work on Hume. Yeah, I can go with that. It's a slightly different adjustment to it, but for sure. Yeah, impressions upon the body, inscriptions upon the surface, all that stuff. Yeah. No, I think we're definitely building on that. I think he's made some adjustments there because it's not Hume that he's really pulling from here, but he's speaking to that same stuff he wrote in his book Empiricism and Subjectivity. I think, yeah. Is that a fair way to say it, Noah?
No, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's probably more Spinoza here, but I honestly do kind of read this a little bit about ENS and how, in the same way that there's impressions upon the body, it seems like there's inscriptions upon the surface of the BWO. I think in this section too, I don't know if you passed it or it's later, but D&G do mention Schreber's BWO, like very explicitly, which kind of makes me think that they're doing something a little bit, Humean in a way, where it's like the impressions upon Schreber's BWO produce the I think, I hear, etc.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's modified language since then, so there's a reason you hear a skepticism in my voice. I think he's playing with those same things, but I think here is like an evolved version of that commentary. Where is I feel? I feel is a belief when you state it. So that's in the delirious. Emotions delirium. Again, they're specific. It's hallucinatory and delirious, which gives like the deeper I feel that it presupposes that they're talking about. Where do these pure intensities come from? They come from two preceding forces, repulsion and attraction, and from the opposition of these two forces. Yes, it all comes down to basically this. The machines we've been talking about, again, these are machines that are desire machines, ultimately building on top of it themselves, reacting to and being repulsed by, and in those things building around those repulsions and connecting around those things. So we have repulsion, the paranoiac, attraction, the miraculating. These two forces are the source of intensive quantities. The bachelor machine does not produce intensities from nothing. This is a mistake I've made in previous readings, and I will atone for it in some way. I have no idea. There's a lot of these. By the way, we're going to run into a lot of these in chapter 2, because so I learn as we do. The bachelor machine produces intensities from the dynamic interplay of the two preceding regimes. And this is important, especially when we get into chapter 3, and also chapter 2. Like the three machines, again, these are not sequential stages that replace each other. They're forces that exist simultaneously, that build upon each other simultaneously, and their interaction is what generates the field of intensities that the subject passes through. Again, Simondon's individuation is basically what they're pulling from here. For Simondon, the individual is produced from metastable pre-individual potentiality. That's the wording he used. They've taken that and put it in an interesting way. But if you want to go see how it directly connects to Deleuze's Desert Islands, he has his book on Simondon. He's got his little bit on Simondon in there that's there. Also chapter 5 of Difference and Repetition. He's pulling all of that here. But again, repulsion and attraction from the preceding regimes. This is what generates. Think of it as a magnetic powered engine. Repulsion and all these things moving past each other, and all that happening generates all these things. Not that intensities are themselves in opposition with one another and balance themselves around a neutral state. This is them being very quick to fix a mistake I made also. The language, again, not really, is different, a little bit different. This is not the Hegelian dialectic or thermodynamic misreading of these things. If intensities came from the opposition of two forces, right? One might think the intensive series tends to equilibrium, towards a neutral state, right? That they go that way. The entropy would be part of this. They say no, emphatically, actually, as emphatically as possible here. The intensive series is non-equilibrium, right? It has to be, because the way Deleuze reads the eternal return is that of difference, not the return of difference, not of the same. It's a completely different reading of that. That's great, but it is about difference being the center of this. And again, this enables that. Intensities themselves are not in opposition with each other. That's not the thing here. They don't do that. Freud attempted to explain this with ambivalence. Freud attempted to explain a lot of these things. And again, they make that, chapter 2, I think, goes very nicely explaining all of these sort of different elements and how they interplay. And again, they're pulling a lot from Freud, but they're critiquing the shit out of him too. So yeah, they're not, intensities are themselves not in opposition with one another and balance themselves around a neutral state. That's not the thing. This is not the dialectic. This is not any of that shit. On the contrary, they are all positive. They're all positive. Starting from intensity equals 0, which designates the full body without organs. Feeling real bad or down is not the same thing as feeling, it's not the opposite of feeling happy. Right? These are all positive. Everything's positive. The BWO itself is this intensity equals 0. It is the heat death of a thing, right? And it's really important because it's not dead. It's not empty. It's not nothing. It is the 0 degree of intensity. Anything that departs from this is necessarily positive. Okay? So think of 0 here as absolute 0 in the world of temperatures. It's a limit that, actually doesn't really get reached at all, but it's the limit at which all measurements are taken from. And no matter how cold it is not negative absolute 0. It doesn't work that way. It is the condition of intensive experience. It is not the negation of it. Important thing that has fucked up some very, very specific big people who pseudo-philosophize. So this is why the BWO, again, it is the condition, not the negation. This is why the BWO is the filled body, the full body, the full body. It's full because it is the 0 from which all fullness departs. Emptiness and fullness coincide at 0. Do you understand how profound that statement is? There's a reason the full body is that. It's full because it's the 0 from which fullness as a thing departs. It's not empty. It's just 0. It's full. DeLanda has a great bit on this, and I don't usually like a lot of his explanations because they tend to get really deep into the sciencey of things. But it's a pretty extraordinary statement. All right. I think this is, we're good. It's not fat. This is, There's so much happening in that sentence, and I kind of like getting this wrong is completely gonna fuck up everyone. So I'm gonna harp on this one. I'm gonna fucking harp on this. Okay. Treating the BWO as something that is empty, as something that is dead, as something that it itself is catatonic is an incredible misreading of it. It's one I've made. Okay. I've done this. This is a thing, and you might be doing it too and not know it or have come from it or whatever. And so maybe I'm overstating, but this is a thing I've run into a ton. The paradox works like this. The BWO is intensity equals 0. And also they insist. Thank you, Lone, very much for the 10. One second, everyone. Very, 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 very much. Thank you. I'm sorry your day has become annoying. Mine has been as well. It's a tough time. The BWO's intensity equals 0, and yet D&G will insist throughout this entire book and in a lot of other writings that the BWO is full, plain, P-L-E-I-N, plain, full, filled, the full body. How can 0 be full? It's important to understand what 0 means here. Like, again, high-level math degrees are really going to be useful here, and I'm sorry that none of us have that. It's not 0 in the sense of nothing or negation. It's 0 in the sense of baseline, like on a graph in calculus. The way that absolute 0 in thermodynamics is not no temperature, right? It's not that. That's not the jam we're having. It's not outside the system. 0 is the thing that enables the system to be a system. 0 is the concept of the set. It's the set that has nothing in it, but it's the set. It's the set. A set that is nothing in it isn't empty. It's still a set. It's so fucking hard to talk about. Like, but again, this is Kant. Well, fucking all of this is Kant, right? So Kant in Anticipations of Perception, he argued that every sensation has this intensive magnitude, a degree of itself. And this degree emits a continuous thing towards 0. Kant was a super calculus guy, basically. But he's super careful here. 0 of sensation is not a lack of sensation, right? It's not the absence of sensation. It's the limit of the intensive diminution. It's how small it can get. The vanishing point of the intensive, where reality approaches but doesn't actually become nothing.
Yeah. So I've read like 90% of the Critique of Purism. I haven't finished it, but I've read like 90% of it. So I'm pretty sure I know most of what Kant's talking about, at least in the Critique of Purism. And I am curious, is this related to the idea of the empty I thing?
Oh. I mean, it's going to be related to, it's going to be related to it. I have to think about that.
Okay, so for people who don't know, when Kant's talking about the empty I think, it's the idea that the unity of subjectivity is what grounds sensible experience, but itself is not substantive, as I understand it.
It's not substantive, but it is also something that does exist.
Yeah.
Which is, I am very hesitant because, look, Kant is one of those that I'm just going to admit goes generally way over my head. It's an extraordinary complex. I really like some of his writing. I find his ideas really interesting. I mostly find other people's writings on him more interesting as a thing because it's a nightmare. But I feel like this is the same stuff because, like, again, so Kant talks about between reality and negation is this continuous series of intermediate things. When he's talking about sensations, it's sensations. 0 is the terminus of the series, but a terminus is not outside of the series or the set, right? So the zero has to belong to the intensive series at the lowest boundary of it. But by being the lowest boundary, it still is part of that series or set. And so like you're talking about the way, because again, there's no such thing for Deleuze for sure. There's no such thing as a negation. Like we don't actually have a vacuum of nothingness. There's no way that doesn't make sense. Klosowski, I think, really said it really well when he said, in order to understand that something doesn't exist, you first have to understand the something that doesn't exist, which means it's always an affirmative interaction. There is never a place that actually is negative or absent because you always are building what it is. There's always an affirmation of the thing. So full entropy isn't actually possible in its own thing, because it's always the reaching of zero, the reaching of that point. But if it was still within the set, you're still in the set. It would have to be outside of the set that entropy becomes the thing. Am I saying that right? You've probably recently read more Kant than me for sure.
Yeah, I've read more Kant recently. I think so. For what I was relating to the idea of I'm not as familiar with Deleuze and Guattari, but for Kant, the idea is that we have sensible experience, and in order to have sensible experience, we need to have an I think. But that I think is not substantial in itself. It only grounds substantiality of sensible experience.
And so Deleuze is Deleuze does this with all of his times. You should definitely read, if you finished with Kant recently, pick up Kant by Deleuze. It is next level to read immediately following it, and really, I think it's one of his best epigraph, like his stunningly clear, really interesting, and I think will help. If you've done that recently, it'll help you make the leap a lot faster, because Deleuze just openly talks about what he's doing with Kant and how he's reading him, and it's really interesting. Because in order to do what I'm doing here, I can't just do Kant alone. Deleuze is bringing Spinoza into this too. Like this is Spinozism for sure inside of this. So he's doing a lot of work to sort of bring these things and combine stuff. So there's a lot of interplay that's a little wild.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, so this idea of negation seems kind of anti-Heideggerian in the sense that for Heidegger, nothingness is constitutive of being, because basically the way Dasein relates to nothingness causes Dasein to impose meaning on being. So we treat what is not there just as much as what is there. And so, like, for example, being towards death, we treat the fact that we won't have future possibilities out as soon as we die as reason to act in the moment, so that nothingness is constitutive of how we interpret existence. I don't know if that's correct interpretation of rules.
No. What they're doing here, and it's again, the Spinozism kicks in really, really hard here, because for Spinoza, substance is infinite. There can't be a negation, because substance contains all attributes, all modes, all reality, and everything. It lacks nothing, right? But substance considered in and of itself, like when we talk about it itself, apart from its modalities, it is empty of determined content, right? It more or less, by the way, that's basically what we're talking about here. The thing that's happening is the substance doesn't have a particular shape. It doesn't have a particular figure, a particular temperature or quality at all. The substance for Spinoza is the pure plane of immanence. It's all of those things. And so that's the deal. The fullness of the substance isn't the fullness of being stuffed with particular things, right? It's the fullness of being the condition for all particular things. So substance is not full because nothing is external to it. No, substance is full because there's nothing external to it. There's no void outside of substance. There's no space that substance doesn't occupy. It's full, not because it's packed, but because there's just no other party in town. Like, that's the way it works.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that makes sense.
And
makes
so
sense.
so they take that, and the BWO is kind of inheriting that style of thing. There's a minor change, and again, this is why Kant's important here. It's full, not because it contains organs or representations or formed entities. These are the things that it explicitly repels, actually. It's because it is the complete surface on which all production takes place. There's no void here. Intensity equals 0 is not a gap in immanence or the intensive field. It's the field without any intensities, which is not empty.
Yeah.
And so that's why the Kant thing is important. Intensive quantities fill matter without void at diverse degrees. That's like Kant's formulation that they're pulling from here.
Yeah. But what I was saying with regards to Heidegger is that even though I've only read I've read more Kant than I've read Heidegger, and I haven't even finished the Critique of Purism. I've only read like 90% of it. But the thing is, as far as I can tell with Heidegger, is he would criticize this idea that presence is constitutive of being, and absence doesn't really exist except in relation to presence, because he would say that absence can still existentially influence how we interpret presence.
And again, I don't think Deleuze would disagree that happens. Like, this is we're talking about like a very, very, it's major for them, but like it's a minor thing. Deleuze wouldn't say that like nothing nothing can be nothing. We talk about nothing all the time. We see the absence of things. We understand, we feel the absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like we talk about things in this way, that stuff's not where it once was. That stuff's missing. This is empty. But this is Klosowski, I think, puts it very well. And I don't think he's responding to Heidegger, but it feels like he's responding to what you're talking about when he says that the act or claim of absence, our understanding of it, is actually an affirming action. We're affirming an absence, so we're actually creating it as an affirmative process.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Heidegger would agree with that, but I think if he's saying that the same phenomena, that absence can constitute how we interpret being, exist, but then they would say that's an affirmative interpretation. If I'm understanding correctly.
But for Heidegger, what is absence?
My understanding from what I've read of Being in Time and Phenomenological Interpretation of Critique of Purism, which are the two Heidegger writings that I have read most of, is basically absence is that which is not there, that Dasein then uses to interpret what is there. So it's like, for example, when I'm in a room and my friends are not there, I feel my friends' absence just as much as I feel the friends who are there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So okay, I'm not a Heidegger expert at all. Again, I think they would probably say that he has identified something that like is real, that there is the unproductive, the unengendered, that which is not categorized. But he's misdiagnosing it as absence when actually it is a positive condition of production.
Okay.
So for Heidegger, and again, as I understand it, big fucking grain of salt. This is not, we have some people who very much know Heidegger. We had a Heidegger reading through Deleuze for the first year of this group, and it was fucking insane. And I'm sure my understanding of Heidegger is completely fucked because of it. But it was really fun. Some people really have read and know, and like people who read Heidegger in German were in there. It was wild. But my understanding for Heidegger, there's the ontological difference, the difference between being, capital B, and beings, requires that being not be a being. I fucking hate reading this and saying this. It's awful. Because this is like what he understands, right? Being gives beings. Being is withdrawn, right? So metaphysics is the forgetting of this withdrawal. Heidegger had this answer to the question, why is there something rather than nothing? He said, because nothing is already operating in the disclosure of something. Those are the quotes, right? Absence is woven into presence. And Deleuze in Deference and Repetition, I mean, I think he does this in Logic of Sense too, basically would say that the appeal to the negative is a residue of representational thought, that by starting in the space of representation that Heidegger claims to overcome, he fails to. Heidegger correctly identifies that, like, these pure being, this Dasein, this cannot be identified with a particular thing, right? But for him, he presumes that something must withdraw, must be absent for that. And Deleuze just asks why. Why must this thing happen? Why not think of it as difference instead of identity first, as this positive, productive, affirming power of differentiation? And Heidegger is very much, yes, no, he's stuck in negation up front. Foucault too, like, again, this is not shitting on Heidi. There's a lot of people who their philosophy is built on this. We exist by not being something else. A non-identity of being is the thing. And Deleuze, like, there's a reason, like, there's this huge split in these communities, because it's like the grounds of reality and like the grounding of things look differently.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, the idea that the being as such is different from beings, Heidegger would say is a like a ontological like mistake by Heidegger, because instead of it being that nothingness is present within absence, it's that the very idea of nothingness is a positive affirmation, and really reality is pure immanent difference, not what Heidegger is talking about.
Yeah, and Heidegger even has concealment and all these other things that, like, are bordered by darkness, and like there's all these different things, and it's like all of this, I think they would probably just say these are the terrors of the paranoia, right? Or the catatonic collapse of the BWO, that these things aren't, again, constituting absence, but instead are the effect of particular operations. And again, the Klosowski line, where it's like, if you're going to recognize the void and say nothing's there, then how do you see it? It's like, well, there's nothing in there. Well, you've defined the thing, and now you're saying nothing is there. Like, you've actually affirmatively created the nothing. There isn't a spot for nothing to exist. Not in the same way.
That makes sense. Yeah, and I as I understand it, I mean, I haven't read Sartre, but I also heard that Deleuze was reacting to Sartre's influence and reception of Heidegger within French philosophy as well.
This is true.
I might read.
This is true. Sartre's interesting. I always recommend people read Anti-Semite and Jew, because I find it to be just one of the more extraordinary, like, treatise on a particular type of bigotry. It's really more than just anti-Semitism now, because hilariously it diagnoses a huge issue within the Israeli community, but it's really worth reading. Otherwise, he's got a lot of things, and Deleuze will just say, diverged. I would probably say safely. All right. To the next bit. I may have to get some water in a moment. And they form, sorry, my throat, I need to relax. And they form relative falls or rises according to their complex relation and the proportion of attraction and repulsion that enters into their cause. The mechanics of variation here. Again, be thinking about these as like the waves of magnets or interference patterns in sound, like impulses as a thing. I think Klosowski did an exceptional job writing about this in Nietzsche and the Vicious Circle, and in all of his works, La Ressemblance, for example. But be thinking about it as that. These are the mechanics, the rises and falls of intensity on the BWO. These are determined by ratios of attraction and repulsion. And again, not one attraction or one repulsion, the mass of that. And then overall, the overall, like attraction, if there's more of it, it would be like a ascent towards ecstasy, to high Stimmung, as Nietzsche might say, the states of manic intensity. Repulsion is, again, descent, catatonic withdrawal, paralysis, depression, all that stuff. But none of these are negative. Negative, not negative in the bad way. These things suck. It sucks to be these things. But when I say these things are not negative, I mean like below zero, right? All of them are positive. There is not a negative intensity. You're just varying positive degrees that depart from zero in various directions and things. So they use falls and rises. You could say stock market language is what they're using here. The falls and rises of stock, more or less, of the Dow Jones is not wildly different than this, by the way. All of this is sort of thinking about the economic register of it. The stream's lagging? Oh no, it is? One moment, checking YouTube. Not for me. Stream health is excellent for me, Cosmic. Good luck. Good luck. Stream's good for me. Stream be streaming. In short, the opposition of forces of attraction and repulsion produces an open series of intensive elements, all positive, which never express the final equilibrium of a system, but an unlimited number of metastable stationary states through which a subject passes. Metastable is going to be a word I use a lot, and hopefully you'll come to use a lot, because it is a fucking great word that needs to be in more people's vocabulary. Stability is when you balance you balance some shit on top of each other. There's a few games that, like Jenga, it's stable. A Jenga tower's stable. It's not metastable. It doesn't really work that way. Metastable is stable under small adjustments that can be tipped into new states at any time by a large enough fucking width. Tornadoes are metastable, for example. A tornado, it doesn't exist. Like, there isn't actually like a tornado. Instead, it's a very specific interaction between high and low pressure systems, winds and temperatures and all kinds of crazy shit that produce this interaction that, again, over land produces a different one, a hurricane, but it's, the funnel. Those things that are happening, the metastability of it is just waiting for a large enough fucking with. When a hurricane passes over land, it loses a lot of what it is. Or I shouldn't say loses. It's the wrong direction, Brooks. The land, because of how water changes the way that high and low pressure functions, or how heat is conducted, the land is going to have a fundamentally different temperature structure. And that will begin to perturbate, which is the phrasing that I use with Simondon. And it fucks with it. A tornado that hits a big lake dies. And it's not that it had a thing removed. It was perturbated in a particular way. Metastability has the ability to be ended by sufficiently large interruptions. And this is Simondon, straight up Simondon as a thing. Intensive series are series of metastable stationary states. Every state is itself stable only provisionally, but it contains the potential for transformation, like land or anything else coming up. A tornado always contains the potential for becoming not a tornado. Or you could say another way, the air and land in Kansas is always waiting for a thing to come along. It is always metastable and waiting for something to perturbate it correctly to enable a tornado to come to form. Right? Because that's probably the best way to talk about this. The subject passes through these states. The subject doesn't have any one of them. It is not any one of these. Right? The schizophrenic subject, they talk about it as nomadic. It's defined by passage. It's not position. And that's the language they're going to be using throughout all of this. And Simondon's individuation, which is massive, by the way, wonderful read. Individuation occurs when metastable systems undergo phase transitions. That becomes the individuation. The individuation arises from this. That metastable field of pre-individual singularities, like the individual is the result of the phase transition within itself. So they're saying in this book that the subject of the bachelor machine is produced precisely as the effect of passing through the phase transition. Yeah. Repeating the same lines from that video. There's a reason I like that video. I don't write very well. I tend to take from a handful of things, and I use them a lot. My video on Charlie Kirk was about this. We are metastable. Like that's the whole point. Is we are configurations that are passing through, that are part of these complex things. Do you mean phase transition as in liquid to gas? It means that same type of thing, yes. Right? The phase transition is the shift from one metastable to another. The phase transition. For Simondon, that's the use of it. The phase transition is the transition from one metastable state to another, one metastable system to another state. I highly recommend Simondon. Simondon's pretty fantastic. We have a bunch of readings of it on the QC. If you go jump around the YouTube, it's all over there. It's a bit scary to think because I could turn evil. Well, again, a tornado can exist where it can exist because the metastability of various conditions produces that kind of thing. You don't see a lot of tornadoes in the mountains of Alaska. There's reasons for that. Can I spell it? I can do you one better. I can just give you the fucking PDFs. Give me a second. I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? I certainly don't do that on the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC. Individuation, mode of existence of technical objects. And then I'm also going to include my favorite book on Simondon. Let's see. No, those will be good. Mode of existence of technical objects is the shorter of the books, and I do recommend it. It's phenomenal, and it's good as like a good baseline for a lot of these things, right? And Discord just crashed for me. That was weird. Can you hear me on Discord still?
Yes.
Okay, good. That was weird. On the mode of existence of technical objects, absolutely, I would say if you're interested in like fully grasping this and building stuff out, that's the foundational work from Simondon to use. If you really want to get into Simondon, I also included individuation in light of notions. And it's fucking great. It is way more complex to read and do. Foxit would be the reader. If anyone needs a PDF reader, Foxit. Get Foxit. Free, easy, no ads. Great. Force direction. It's not as simple as velocities. It's not as simple. It's the entire field of potentiality enables that which can be built on it, and there are things on it. That the stuff that it exists as is itself formed from those potentialities, but also has the ability to be disturbed by a large enough perturbation which can undergo phase change and then shift it into a new metastability. So it's a lot. It's a lot here. There's a lot here. Now we're going back to Kant, because why not make it just easier? Profoundly schizoidal is the Kantian theory according to which intensive quantities fill matter without void at diverse degrees. I mean, we kind of went over this. We kind of covered this a moment ago, thanks to Alec. So, yeah. Yeah. Keep going. Following the doctrine of Judge Schreber, attraction and repulsion produce intense states of nerve, which fill the full body without organs at diverse degrees, and through which the subject Schreber passes, becoming woman, becoming many other things, still according to a circle of eternal return. There's no way he's not referencing Klosowski here, because this is almost directly Klosowski. Almost directly Klosowski. It's hard for me to say otherwise. Yeah, I'm going to say like it feels like that's direct. Okay. We kind of went through a little bit of this before, but I'm going to kind of sort of restate this, right? Schreber's nervous states, and they don't mean nervous as like, oh, but like the states of his affective nervous experience. There's a reason that we talk about this with psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. It's not his nervous states like, oh, I think about being nervous. It's the nervous states, bodily embodied states. And in his memoirs, he describes them in terms of nerves. There's a reason they use that his nerves are filled with divine rays. His nerves are retracted or pulled out of his body, crazy shit. These things are the like clinical analog of Kant's intensive quantities, filling matter at diverse degrees, but filling it in total. Schreber's experience is effectively spontaneous Kantianism. I don't know how else to say it. That's what they're making the comment here. It's like the becomings of Schreber pass through, especially becoming woman, and are intensive transitions on the BWO. These are the various metastable states and phase transitions of it. They follow a circle, a vicious circle, you might say, of the return. The subject Schreber is produced as residue from every state it passes through, reborn at each transition. And this is more or less Schreber's own account. This is more or less Schreber's own accounting. It's kind of how he talks about it, too. Because he talks about, and we'll do this real quick, the breasts on the naked chest of the judge are neither delirious nor hallucinatory. They designate first a band of intensity, a zone of intensity on his full body without organs. Is the eternal return of the vicious circle refers to? Sort of. Yes. I mean, it's about the eternal return. I can't recommend it enough. It's one of the best books. So good. But for Nietzsche, the eternal return ends with or is born of a total forgetting of the experience of the eternal return, which enables us to sort of be. So the eternal return happens and you connect with all things, all beings, all possibilities, all potentialities, and this ecstatic experience necessarily ends, and you forget about it until you remember it and you experience it again. But you have to forget about it, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do anything. Forgetting is a big deal with Nietzsche. But every time you're born differently. You return different, more or less. more or less.
Hello? Sorry, my mic
Yes,
was.
please.
I had a question related to text. So for is this referring to the idea that is a relation to Kant here with Judge Schreber, the idea of that matter is a result of the extension and forces, because that's my understanding of what Kant is referring to. Is matter is not atomic entity, but it's a result of force fields interacting. Is that what Deleuze is getting at here?
No, I don't. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say no. It's not as I'm reading it. Specifically, what I'm reading it as, for Kant, the way matter works is basically matter is always filled at diverse degrees in totality by intensive quantities. There is no part that isn't some version of intensive quantities necessarily. And as such, what we're seeing with Schreber is actually this made flesh, that Schreber is passing through these things, and he's doing so spontaneously, but it's because these intensive transitions are in total somewhere, like they're filling completely up. That's what he's doing. Like he's doing Kant. When he sees it, let me finish the paragraph. We'll come back to it because I think it's tough for me not to just start explaining, because this is the point. Like, for example, we're right now talking about the breasts of the judge. This is a thing that traditionally, when we talk about, why is Schreber seeing that he has breasts? Well, you traditionally would just go, it's a hallucination that he imagines having breasts. He's imagining it. He's wrong. Or he believes he's becoming a woman because of some delusional system he's part of. They're refusing both. They're saying that the breasts are neither delirious nor hallucinatory. The breasts are a band of intensity, and that phrasing is really kind of weird. It's a zone on the BWO, a band that has almost been activated, that has been invested with intense quantities. Again, everything's fully filled with them. But the breast itself, not an object. It's not a representation. It's this like part of this intensive field that has been inflated to a certain degree, enlarged to a certain degree. So again, the way they're reading, and I'm not saying it's a good reading of Kant. That's not really a thing that you can ever say. Like, this is more Deleuze's reading of Kant. Schreber and everything is experiencing, there's not a lack in a thing. There's not a missing part. He's not like, I have God, oh my God, I have breasts now. And it's like, no, you don't, God, weirdo, or something like that. It's like, assume he does. Like his intensities he's full of this shit. He is having a bodily experience of this, even if it's pathologically seeming absurd. It is intensive, not representational. It is the big deal here. That's the thing he's driving at. Does that make sense? It's not going to be a one-to-one with Kant here. That ain't the jam.
Yeah, that makes sense. The only thing I would say is that I think that is related to the point about that matter is not for Kant, it's a relational concept. It's not a substantive concept. I think that's related to here because the idea that relations are affirmative. If that makes sense.
Yeah, Deleuze talks about this, I think, a really nice way in Logic of Sensation. Francis Bacon, Logic of Sensation. Deleuze talks about that you have these painted bodies, especially in Bacon, he's going over it. But he's like, the painted body isn't really a body. A painted body is more a field of forces and intensities. It's not really a represented thing. It's not that there's a body in a painting. That's the wrong way to think about it. It's instead that it's a series of fields and intensities that are sort of we're unwillingly interacting with, right? That's the deal. The I feel is the residue. The I feel is the residue, if you put the heavy emphasis on the I. But we're almost there. We're almost there. I'm going to keep going because I've got 10 minutes to finish, like 5 minutes to finish this because I've got to get going. I didn't realize I'd been going 2.5 hours. The full body without organs is an egg. It is traversed by axes and thresholds, longitudes, latitudes, geodesics. It is traversed by gradients, which mark the becomings and passages, the destinations of the one who develops there. The language around this is so fucking good. Again, the egg, famous reference here, also incredibly misunderstood. Also by me, fine, it's fine. Everyone gets this. There's a lot of this thing. It's the paradigmatic BWO because it is undifferentiated. And I'm not going to explain how DNA works or how any of this works, but there isn't as I said earlier, there's not a chicken foot somewhere in a chicken egg. It's weird intensities that will become those things, right? That like they use this terminology that's like geographic and embryological at the same time. And it's really, they make a reference of, Deleuze for sure. Deleuze loves egg references. In Difference of Repetition, he represents Delk, where the egg is this series of intensive gradients, because the egg does have axes, right? It has parts of it that seem concentrated or more concentrated than others, right? It has thresholds, it has latitudes and longitudes, it has all these things. He goes through this really in depth in DNR. And like this is the thing he's pushing for, that we read and look at all of it like these are capacities to be affected. These are relations of motions and rest. These are all these parts together. Kantian intensive quantity, Spinozist longitude latitude, differential geometry, morphogenesis of the embryo. All of these things he's brought together to like this one image, and it's an incredibly dense thing to do, but it's kind of a brilliant way to get this across because that's his point. The point of this. Nothing here is representational. Everything is life and lived. The lived emotion of the breasts does not resemble breasts, does not represent them any more than a predestined zone in the egg resembles the organ which will be induced there. It's not that the egg looks like a foot. There will be a foot there at some point, and there's sort of a weird collection of shit that will make a foot. Like it'll do that at some point. Like there's going to be a foot there, maybe a chicken beak or whatever. But this is like the most anti-representational stance that there is, that Judge Schreber's breasts and his feeling of them, his affect of the breasts, they don't look like them. They don't represent breasts. That's not the setup here. It doesn't do any of that. It doesn't do any of that at all. The intensive zone that is the breasts on the BWO is related to the anatomical organ, the way that the egg has parts relating to chicken beaks. It doesn't look like it, doesn't represent it. It's a field of conditions and things that will produce the organ only through an extended process of individuation. Nothing but bands of intensity, potentials, thresholds, and gradients. That's it. That's all the BWO is. A harrowing experience to moving, by which the schizo is closest to matter, to an intense and living center of matter. And then the Artaud quote. This emotion situated outside the particular point where the spirit seeks it. This emotion which returns to the spirit, the shattering sound of matter. The whole soul flows there and passes into the ardent fire. That's Artaud. Fragments of Fragments d'un journal d'enfer la pense nerfs. It's in his complete works. There's a version on the server somewhere. I'll upload mine if you need it. Every one of these theoretical theorists that we've talked about, from Kant to Schreber to Simondon to all this embryological shit, and they end with Artaud, who's himself like this figure who embodies this thing. His project, Artaud called it the theater of cruelty. That's what he did. He did the theater of cruelty. And his goal was to bypass representation, to reach some direct part of you with what, like seeing him or hearing him perform or that, like some weird extra thing that isn't human, that wasn't material. And the Artaud quote is talking about an emotion that is not where the spirit seeks it. It's not in the I think, it's not in the I see, but it's somewhere else wholly, in the vibratory material thing that matter is. The soul flows into this emotion. It passes into the ardent fire. This is consummation. Consummation. Not consummation, like that is consummation. This is the consumption, the voluptus that defines the bachelor machine. Right? So, the bachelor machine isn't a desire machine the way that like a breast-mouth coupling is, right? It's the regime under which desire machines in the BWO enter this new alliance and that they're playing with. The whole paragraph is the arc of how this comes about, right? It's the whole thing. And everything is that. Is the irreducibility of intensive experience to representation fundamentally. And with that, I have to get going. I've got to dad it up. Finish another 2 pages. Join me maybe later tonight with any luck, if schedule permits, for streaming. We got some Jang stuff to review, which is insane and hilarious. Also some stuff around the world, because there's stuff happening. Please stay safe out there. Anyone who is within the earshot of my voice, includes you here on Discord, and also all of you who are not. Do your best to take care of things and take care of yourself and each other. There's very few things more important than that. And I don't think anything's live right now that I give a shit about. So I'm probably not just going to end the stream, and it's just going to be a boring, is that it? Let's see. Yeah, it looks like I'm the only one who's live that exists. That's fun. It's good timing. That's fine. But with that, I'm going to say, hey, join the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC. If you do want to support me, super chats are always lovely. I thank every one of you for it. You also can head over to Patreon, patreon.com/DGQC. Give some love there. $5 a month goes a huge way towards making sure I can do these things more regularly and keep this shit up. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. Thursday, Klasowski, readings in the QC. Please join us. Please join us. Please join us. And I will see you all soon enough. We are clear of the stream, right?